On this episode of the Futures in Digital Learning podcast, we bring you a conversation with Reed Dickson, educator, writer, and designer who regularly speaks on AI.
We have to train our AI dragons. Yeah. We have to coach them on what we're looking for and explicitly what we're not looking for as well.
Join us as we discuss using AI from an instructional design perspective, empowering our students to direct their own learning, and some of the fun and creative ways we can play with AI. Hello, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 4 of the Futures in Digital Learning podcast. Once again, I am Adam Davi, Instructional Design Manager with UCAT over at the University of Arizona. I'm here with my co-host, Brian Hale. Brian, welcome.
Hey, everyone. Hey, thanks.
And today we are joined by a friend of ours, Reed Dickson. Reed Dickson is an educator, writer, designer who regularly speaks on AI and the future of teaching, learning, and technology. He currently directs online faculty experience and innovation at Pima Community College. And previously, he directed a K-12 teacher education program in New York City at Teachers College, Columbia University. Welcome, Reed.
Adam, Brian, so good to be with you again. Always good to be with you.
Well, we're happy to have you, and we're happy to have a conversation about AI, which I know listeners they're probably like, what is AI? Have we heard of this thing before?
Wasn't it a movie with Robin Williams?
It was Robin Williams in that movie?
No.
He was.
Joe, question.
Now I don't know.
Bicentennial Man.
That's where I think so. Yeah. AI was Jude Law and
there you go.
And Haley Joel Osment. Yeah. I was I have mixed feelings about that movie, but we'll save that for another podcast. But yeah, so AI, I know it's out there. It's the hot topic. It's been the hot topic for the last year and a half. How does that kind of affect us with course design and instructional design work? And that's what we're going to talk to Reed about today and look at, what that looks like as far as AI usage and from an instructor standpoint and from student standpoint. So Reed is one of the experts in the field on AI. So we're happy to have his voice and share what he has to say on the topic. So let's just jump right in. I know one of the things is there's this stigma with AI that students are going to use it to cheat because they've never used anything else to cheat before. So how do we get past that stigma and look at it for what it is, which is, a tool to, increase student success and engagement?
Yeah, I think those are both interesting connected questions, the positive use and the misuse. Yeah. It's real. There's both.
Yeah. Right.
When ChatGPT rolled out, I believe that Chegg lost 40% of market share. I don't know if you're familiar with Chegg as a verb, but when students are late, they're getting work done around finals, they will Chegg it. And folks are turning to ChatGPT for positive and negative ways, like any technology. It's an inevitability that we're going to see students diving into these tools. We already know from research that comes out of Titan Partners that half of students are regular users of generative AI as of fall of last year, fall of 2023, and that 3/4 of students are going to use it even if their instructors or their colleges ban it. So it is the new tool that students will be expected to use in their college and career pathways.
Right. There's
no way around it. And that's exciting and terrifying. So one of the things that, I guess we could talk about this, we can do a deeper dive, but one of the most important things that we can do is have frank, open conversations with our students, because we're not necessarily going to be able to be experts. And as much as that's hard for some faculty, if we believe in andragogy, we want students to be the experts in the room, we have to create a place where they can share how they're using AI for learning.
Yeah,
I strongly feel that. However, there are going to be faculty that aren't comfortable with that. And when I do talks nationally, it runs the gamut from folks who want to absolutely refuse the use of AI in their classrooms to folks that are on the other end. I also have the pleasure of co-teaching and regularly teaching this class on AI for teaching and learning, in which we have faculty that will start in the first week saying they do not want to use AI at all with their students. And by the time they finish the course, they want to actually ask their students to use AI throughout the course. I think it's important to create a space for every faculty member with every position and every view to have a voice to come in and share their thoughts, even if they're really entirely opposed to the use of AI and not acknowledging that AI is going to be in the future of our students. They need to have the space to be able to state their positions with us. But more importantly, they need to be able to just have a communication with their students that is frank and that's open. And if they're opposed to AI and the use of AI, they need to be explicit about that in their presentations with all their students. First week, not just AI expectation statements, which a lot of people call syllabus statements. Setting clear expectations about how AI can be used and on what assignments within your syllabus is one thing.
Right.
But I personally never like syllabi. I think they're the worst introduction to teaching and learning that higher education has ever invented. And so we begin with that sort of contractual experience with our students. We expect them to read every line. I don't think that that's necessarily an effective way to communicate. It's important to be there inside the syllabus, but I think we have to set up a space during the first week where we have frank discussions about expectations for AI use. For those that are really opposed to it or those that are 100% promoting it, there's a lot of nuances that they need to address during that first week. But it just, for me, communication is number one, regardless of what you know about AI. As you start being very clear and transparent about your expectations during the first week is super important.
So that brings up a couple things that you talked about is having the space to have those open conversations, for faculty, but also having that space for students as well, right? I've been a proponent over the last year of like getting student voice into these conversations, and we have these faculty learning communities, and we have all these, workshops on AI and stuff, and it's all faculty driven, right? But where are the student voices? Like you said, like they're using it. They're the ones that want to use it and see the value of it.
They are teaching us. They are like, I don't know if you remember this, Adam, but last year when we sought you out to be on a panel with our chancellor, you were the one person that was outside of our college that we brought in as an expert to talk. And we had two students that were on the panel that taught our chancellor, our chancellor at the time, Lee Lambert, about AI and how they use AI at 2 a.m. as a special friend to be able to take a deep dive into learning. Asking, okay, you explain to me like I'm 8, now explain it to me like I'm 12, now explain it to me like I'm 14, which is constructivism. It's progressive complexity. He didn't frame it that way, but he said, this is what's working for me. And the student was teaching us. He was the expert. And I think that's something that we're going to see if we create a safe space for students to share. We are not good at policing learning. We're not policing institutions. We shouldn't get in that business.
No.
And for me, we should probably address this question of handling misuse, but creating a space for students to be experts in our classroom, I think, is what andragogy is all about. And we need to create that space, even if we're not the experts in the room. That's probably a positive thing that it's moving so quickly, because we will never be able to be those experts. And our students will be able to emerge into that space with original ideas for innovative uses that they should be sharing with each other.
Agreed. And I think it's, creating those spaces, I think, is valuable. But now, looking at it from an online perspective, how do we create that space in an asynchronous online course, right? Like to have those conversations. We all know we've been in those spaces where we have discussion boards, or we use even the interactive discussions, right? The voice threads and yellow digs and things like that. But how do we get those genuine, authentic conversations surrounding something where, in this case, there's not like a grade attached to it or any sort of motivating piece. I should say any sort of extrinsic motivator attached to it that students respond to. But we're just saying like, hey, let's have this conversation, but it's happening asynchronously.
So, there's a lot of different thoughts around AI use and how to get students to have frank conversations. One of them is just, as with any topic that matters in our world, even in a pre-built course, what people are calling master courses for a long time, but I prefer calling them pre-built courses. In those pre-built courses, you can always add a module in or a discussion form in using whatever tool that you love to use for discussion, whether it's a threaded format or an external learning tool. Having a space in which we can celebrate students for their novel use, bonus points, virtual pat on the back experiences using D2L badges that say, hey, great work sharing an innovative learning idea. Open pedagogy experiences where students can say, hey, I'm going to share ideas for future students in my class. And this is how I used AI to structure my learning experience to help me analyze difficult concepts within the class, to help me compare ideas of major thinkers in the course, to digest content that I provided to it, to help me with my thinking and learning process from start to end. And they, I think, want to be recognized for their innovative ideas.
Yeah.
So why not?
Yeah.
Why not give them something that they could feel really proud of, that they share with their class and with future students that you're teaching?
So I just want to share a story about, students, giving them that space to feel proud over their work. And I had a student in a course a couple of years ago. They turned in their final project. She made a video, and it was one of those videos where the narration matches what looks like a live drawing happening. Nice. And you've probably seen them on YouTube. They're a popular thing. But she did it herself. Like, I asked her, I said, this is really cool. Can I borrow this? Can I use it to share with future classes? Like, how did you do this? And she explained her whole process of how she did it. She did the drawings herself, and then recorded the video of her doing the drawings, then did the narration and matched it up. And she didn't go out and learn use a program that did it for her. She just was like, I have this idea. I want to do it. I figured out how to do it myself, and I made it work, and I'm proud of it. And it was cool. And I, like you said, I want to have those spaces, put in that reflection piece. I think that's a valuable piece that is overlooked in so many courses of how are we giving students a chance to reflect on their own learning? Not just what did you learn, but how did you learn that? How did you get there?
We don't as a rule do that in higher ed. Yeah, unfortunately. It's more of a K-12 practice to think about metacognition and to have regular reflection around our drafts, or even a question like, how much time did you spend on this, and where were your breakthroughs, and what would you have done if you had more time, or what were your goals for this piece? Give us as an instructor kind of a lens into that, whatever we're going to assess. We know how they see themselves in terms of their academic self-concept in some way before we dive into that feedback experience. And I think, a lot of folks are talking about, okay, cite AI every time you use it. I don't even believe in MLA or APA or any of these citation formats, because they don't capture the process.
Right.
They don't say, please include a link to your transcript so I can see your cognitive work. What questions did you pose to your AI tool in the process? How did it respond, etc.? And that can be overtly coached, so that students can, every time they're sharing some kind of a learning artifact with you, a writing product or iterative design or whatever they're building, they can show their work and reflect on the tool and reflect on their process, and even critique the tool and say, these were the shortcomings of the tool. I want to be inside my students' brains whenever possible. And why not give them a chance? Because they also want to be in their brains. They want to have a meta opportunity to, be reflective about what works and to share what works.
Yeah.
And I think it also gives students access points to each other when they see each other's reflections on their own process, regardless of AI.
Yeah.
It's just a process reflection.
Right.
And those to me are golden. But I will go back to the AI piece, which is, we have in the AI for Teaching and Learning course that I built with our dean, we have our faculty designing things that they can use with their students. And one example that was shared with me recently from a former student who is, former principal, and she's a current faculty member. She asks all of her future teachers, which are just students at our college, to, create an account, and you have to create an account incidentally in ChatGPT in order to share your transcript. Right. That's an important piece. You have to in general, create accounts for everything, and not everything is easily shared. I should note that. Right now, as of today's date for this recording, Claude doesn't have a transcript sharing feature.
Okay.
But Gemini, Copilot, ChatGPT, you can share those transcripts. What she has them do is post their initial query and then say 5 ways that they refine the initial query as part of their work to create lesson plans, to create transcripts for other kinds of things that they need to create as new teachers. So whatever they're creating, it's like a makerspace. It's an online like makerspace within a discussion forum or within a Padlet or within a whatever tool you're using, where they can quickly share something that they created and how they created it, and a brief reflection, hyper transparent learning experiences.
So I just want to go back and I love what you're sharing about, how we can have students sharing, but I want to point out that I think, the list that you gave of all those tools, right? Claude, Copilot, Gemini, ChatGPT, right? That right there, I think is the where we get a lot of hesitation from faculty, right? Like, how do I learn all of these tools to teach my students? But then it goes back to what you said before, right? How do we flip it? And the students are teaching us, right? So how do we, it goes back to then building that space where, okay, you don't have to be an expert in these tools. You just have to be aware.
Thank you. And honestly, these tools are going to change, Adam. Whoever's listening to this recording a year from now is going to be like, well, we're no longer using Gemini or Claude or Microsoft Copilot. We're using Mistral, which is within Hugging Face, or whatever they're using. There's going to be a new tool. And maybe the broader question that we need to empower our students to answer is, how can you demonstrate your learning? And how can you demonstrate your process in as transparent a way as possible?
Yeah.
So if they're using a tool that doesn't have a transcript sharing tool, whatever, no big deal. They just copy and paste the questions they posed and the answers they received into a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word doc, and we can see the work.
Yeah.
And they can reflect on it. Like they can give us really innovative ways to share what they're doing. And these sharing techniques will change.
Right.
I really think so. But I don't think we need to be and I know that we cannot be experts in ChatGPT or in Claude. If you look at just the pace of change in those tools, moving from 3.5 to ChatGPT 4 to this free version of 3.5, which is called 4.0, it's going to keep expanding rapidly towards ChatGPT 5, et cetera. It's going to have functionality that is, if the last year and a half, or I guess since December of 2022, if that tells us anything about the pace of AI shifting, we will suddenly see, for example, ChatGPT being able to do what Claude did, which was to ingest PDFs, and then ChatGPT being able to ingest a full zip file and unpack it for you. ChatGPT being able to have a hands-free discussion with you, where you don't have to touch anything, you just talk to your phone. Then things like ChatGPT versus Gemini, ChatGPT, you used to be able to receive a chat transcript and then respond as part of the experience, as the instructor of record, and then send it back to your student as another link and have an extended discussion that is AI infused within that link. They disabled that. So Google currently allows for that.
Okay.
Google's Gemini tool. So you can respond to, I believe as of today, that's still possible. But these things will change, whatever, who cares? As long as we coach the idea that students are going to need to learn how to do that in the workplace, to be transparent and ethical in sharing that process, to be able to identify and share what their work was and how they used AI to increase the quality or the efficiency of their work products. That's the future. They're going to either use it surreptitiously or ways that are ethical and transparent. And this is the opportunity to coach them. Otherwise, they're just going to learn it on their own. And, most likely they're going to use it in really basic ways. And that's what the Titan Partner study suggests, is that they're not using it in advanced ways when they start. We have an opportunity to sort of coach them to ask it more difficult questions, to do multi-turn conversations, to challenge the tool, to ask it to play a role, to be Socratic with us, to pose questions to us. We don't necessarily know these things unless we as instructors are playing with these tools, Adam.
Right.
And I know you play with these things constantly.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I promote in the talks that I do, even with leaders, is I talk about the urgency of play. And I make sure everybody downloads the app on their phone and asks it to build a recipe for them, or a travel, like a one-day trip that they could do any place near them. Just something fun, a playlist on Spotify where they're playing with the tools and realizing, oh, I can actually use this in ways that, like I remember one of our leaders at our college was dumbfounded at how easy it is to use this tool to help students apply for jobs, to create CVs and resumes. He was giddy. He wasn't expressing any excitement about the tool until he saw that one use case. But that was through playing with the tool. And we're not going to necessarily know, like the Titan Partner study, I'll return to that study again. They did a study, they reviewed data, all kinds of data from students, faculty, administrators. They found students are using tools more than faculty, and faculty are using them more than administrators. We need to get our administrators and our faculty playing with these tools.
Yeah.
Just for fun.
Right.
It's urgent that we play with these things.
And I think that's how faculty can model these type of conversations for students to share about how they're using it, if they're sharing how they are using it. So if we, kind of circle back a little bit to course design, right? And we think like, well, how can we get faculty to play with this? So let's figure out how we can get them to use it in the course design process, right? And then be transparent. Tell that story to your students. Like, this is what I did. I used AI. I put in this question. Like, it helped me build this assignment. I asked it this and it gave me this. And then I reworked what it told me to make this process. Like, share how you are creating something for your course. And I've done that, like you said, I play with it and I share about what I did. I helped it for a conference presentation that I did, where we created a mystery game, right? And we used AI to help kind of start with the story brainstorm and creating characters. And then we built it, expanded from there. And we share that part in the presentation as well. Like, hey, this is like what we did. This is how we put it together, because part of what we want to share is like, this is how you can use the tool to create something for you, in your course as well. Or it doesn't have to just be for a conference presentation. Same thing with in the class. Like, this is how I, as an instructor, created this assignment. And you as a student, this is how you can use it as well, and be transparent about how you're using it.
Absolutely.
So that modeling piece, and again, that's something that is a K-12 concept more than higher ed, right? The idea of modeling.
I'm a K-12 person,
right?
I'm sorry.
And I started in K-12 too, right? And so, it's we know those practices. I think and so many of our IDs here in UCAT also came from a K-12 background, right? So we have those ideas ingrained in us.
Of modeling and
modeling,
like
right?
The idea that we should model everything, or
right.
The term that people use is TILT, which is transparency in learning and teaching.
Yeah.
The benefit of that is that we get to quietly introduce our students to AI and ethical uses of AI without overstating it. Even if we're just doing teacher side AI, using AI to build modules, to build badges, to build questions, to build quizzes, to build interactives in H5P or other tools. Like, all of that process that we're doing can quietly introduce a new norm to students around how it's important to be transparent.
Right.
And even acknowledge the shortcomings of our attempts.
Yeah.
I love talking about how AI fails.
Yeah.
And modeling and showing examples of how, even if AI can effectively diagnose undiagnosable diseases with people reading MRI data, which it can do. I think there was a story that came out a while back in today.com, and I'm Googling it as we're speaking just to find it. But there was a story about a young boy who went to many different doctors.
Wait a second. Stop. Time out. Why are you Googling it? Ask ChatGPT.
Right? True.
Ask ChatGPT and see what ChatGPT tells us about
Okay,
this.
Brian. You're right, as usual.
Let's use the tool we're talking about. I love looking at AI fails as well. And I think it's important to help students and help faculty identify the failures and the incorrect information that AI can sometimes give us based on the information that AI has been fed. So, there was one on my friend Facebook of a ginormous millipede that, dinosaur-sized millipede. And it was actually an AI create. The thing is no bigger than a pencil.
I
And
saw that video.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you go, there's no such thing as a giant. Come on. But when you have a student putting together their AI prompt and then they get information from whichever AI thing they're going to use, they've got to be able to identify, wait a second, that second paragraph, there's something wrong with that there. So I think that's an important thing. Not just teach them how to use the AI tool, but teach them how to know when they're getting fed, they're being reeled in hook, line, and sinker, as they say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I took your advice, Brian,
Okay.
and you were right.
Oh, what did it say?
And this is the interesting thing about generative search. We're going to see AI taking over search experiences in general. We already are seeing some evolutions there. But when I searched this, I posed the question to ChatGPT 4.0, which is the vanilla version that is the fastest, most effective free version available to our students and faculty. And I simply said this: tell me about the boy who was diagnosed by AI last year.
Okay.
And it read my mind, of course. It knew what I was trying to get at.
Okay.
It does fail miserably in certain circumstances repeatedly, and I'll get to that in a moment. But in this example, it knocks it out of the park. It says, last year, a remarkable case surfaced where a boy named Alex, who had suffered from chronic pain for 3 years and consulted 17 different doctors without a diagnosis, was finally diagnosed by AI. And then it goes on to tell the whole story about the mother who used ChatGPT, put all of his symptoms and medical history into ChatGPT. This is just basic ChatGPT, not the paid version, and found out that he had tethered cord syndrome, which was a rare spinal condition. He had been to 17 doctors. None of them could diagnose him, and then AI could.
Yes.
And when the doctors reviewed that diagnosis, it was spot on. So this was an article that I saw on today.com, but ChatGPT is summarizing it. And the new version of ChatGPT is getting better at this. It's including links to the magazines, to the sources where this information comes from. And we see the same thing now with tools like with Gemini, with Copilot, and Perplexity, which is a very interesting tool as well. A lot of folks are using Perplexity and Consensus AI for research. Perplexity itself bills itself as an answer engine, as an alternate to Google search, where you go in and you search something and it does a live search, tells you a quick summary of everything, and gives you links to all the sources so that you know that it's less likely to have some kind of a glitch where it's regenerating false information, because you can look at the original source as part of the experience.
Perfect.
So you're right, Brian. We should have gone straight into the tool just to demonstrate it.
It's that kind of
stuff. I should have asked my phone. I should have held up my phone and then talked to it.
Talked into it. Yeah.
To model that.
Yeah.
So talk to me in terms of the use of these tools and the pain points. Brian, you said you like to talk with students about when these tools fail. One thing that one of the faculty members that I met while doing talks in Reno, she said, AI can kill. It'll give you the wrong dose of epinephrine. Let me show you. And then we did a 15-minute Zoom where she showed me all the ways that she could make AI kill a patient. I was like, oh, that's fascinating. This was over a year ago.
Yeah.
But her point is that these tools will do exceptionally problematic things occasionally. And that's a big risk. And so it's astonishingly right and it's astonishingly wrong. And what do we do about it as educators? Do you have thoughts about that, Brian, Adam?
That's a tough one, because I wrote in, I was getting really bad information from ChatGPT 3 point whatever it was. And I said, I typed to it, this is wrong. How do I tell you this is wrong so that you won't ever repeat this info? And it didn't give me an answer that it gave me like Isaac Asimov kind of answer where I was like, okay, that's not helpful. It's cute, but it's not helpful. So I don't know that there is an answer yet. What I do so there's a public health law and ethics class, and this instructor used to redo her lectures every single year, which is phenomenal. But they were kind of long lectures, and I said, wouldn't it be great if you sent your students out to find the information you're lecturing about?
Nice.
Have them go hunt for it, because in the quote real world, you have to go find things. You're looking up stuff on Google or wherever all the time. You need to know what the good source sites are, the CDC website, the FDA website, the whatever website. And so my prompt to her was come up with ways that instead of just telling your students, you're sending them out to these good sites to find this information, and then figure out a way to use AI to concatenate all of that into a nice little 5-minute presentation, 7-minute flow chart, graphic, whatever it is they want, however they feel best that they can present that information. And then also in the footnotes, explain what they knew was wrong based on information they're reading in the book in the class, information you're giving them in other lectures, information they've heard from their roommate's uncle's brother, that kind of stuff. Tell me after you've given me this presentation where something went wrong that you didn't expect to go wrong. And then did you have a way to solve that, or did you just cut that paragraph out of what was generated in AI? I've generated some stuff in AI multiple times with a simple prompt and then getting increasingly extravagant, trying to get something that the AI just was not giving me. And then there just comes a point where you just go, I'm just going to do this myself. It's just going to be easier and faster. And I know what I want, but I'm having trouble interfacing with this AI, and I'm not speaking its language, and it's not understanding what I'm wanting. So I'm just going to take it to the curb and go do it myself. And I really want to avoid that kind of frustration in any of the classes with both the students and the instructors. When instructors are asking, hey, help me build this assignment for my students, and it's coming up with just real grandiose kind of things, when you need to be like, they need to do this in about 30 minutes. This is not, they don't
rarely does that for me.
Budget. Yeah.
And one of the things that I've been doing, I'm trying to write a piece on this called How to Train Your AI Dragon. But there's so many things you can do that get it to not go down the path of creating a really grandiose activity there's no way that they're going to complete in a 2-hour time period. So one of the things I'll do is I will train it on a sample assignment that is similar and say, okay, we want an assignment with a similar scope of work or a similar voice, but I'll give examples and say, this is what we're looking for. I'll share teaching philosophy around, is this supposed to be a student-centered learning experience where the students are constructing or co-constructing the knowledge? Whatever my core values are, I infuse that into the prompt from the outset. And I generally have to challenge it repeatedly, ask it to not do this and to please do this and absolutely do not do this. And sometimes I'll give it direct quotes if I needed to say a specific thing. And then I'll share that with our faculty and I'll say, this is my experience. It wasn't a one and done. Even if it's well trained, we still have to push it until it gives us something close to what we would hope for when we're breaking the blank page. What does that look like? It's different for everybody. But for me, I find a lot of luck with training it on samples and saying, this is what we're looking for. Even the AI for Teaching and Learning course that we built, we had to have a sort of a course proposal. We took the ed tech class that I built with another faculty member, and we said, please create an AI for Teaching and Learning course based upon this course proposal. And it created a new course proposal, same length, same kinds of language, same kinds of values. Really quick way to break the blank page and give us a first draft. And then we edited by hand for everything else. But I'm a big fan of, whenever possible, giving it a sample, even of, you have to write an email to students or I know this isn't really an instructional designer piece, but it might be relevant for faculty who are busy to say, okay, we'll give it 5 examples of different things you've written to students. And then you can use that to train your response. You just upload a PDF and say, please write like me. It sounds weird, but write like me is a huge time saver, and it's going to have some errors. But I know at our last online education conference, our ed tech person, Adam Baldry, who you both may know.
Oh, yeah, we know Adam. He's a guest of the podcast as well.
He's fabulous. And so he wanted to post an announcement to our 400 faculty attending saying, hey, please come visit our ed tech corridor. We just opened up that module. We want you to play with these tools. And he wanted me to write it. And I'm like, I was just too crazy busy to write it. So what he did was he took my last 3 posts in the announcements form and said, "Hey, make it sound like Reed, and here's what we need to say." And then he sent me a draft in 10 minutes. It was ready. All I had to do was change one sentence, and it was out the door. Which is sort of like, we have to train our AI dragons.
Yeah.
We have to coach them on what we're looking for, and explicitly what we're not looking for as well.
Well, and that goes back to your question, right? Of what do we do? And it's those critical thinking skills that we can't start teaching those obviously in higher ed. Hopefully those are happening in K-12 and whatnot, and moving up. But we can have those conversations, and this might conspiracy theorist, but like, question everything, right? Like, don't just take the first Google search result. Don't just take the first thing that AI sends you. How do we critically analyze what we're getting in every aspect, right? And that's hard because we're bombarded, and this is a topic that we've had in multiple podcasts, right? Students are bombarded with content and information in so many ways, right? Social media and school and work and family and all this stuff, and it's hitting them. It's hard to parse through everything. And it's easy to just be like, oh, well, I read this headline, this must be true. It's like, well,
ChatGPT said it must be true.
Right. Yeah.
There've been lawyers
right?
who've taken cases into the courtroom saying, well, ChatGPT told me it was case law, and it wasn't.
Right.
And that's going to be the new kind of digital literacy, is really an AI infused digital literacy. And I would go back to the idea, we don't have to be experts, but we do need to put the question in front of our students.
Right.
I mean, we can't be experts. I really don't believe in expertise in this realm, but we can engage our students in interrogating knowledge and being able to look closer and find support that is from a peer-reviewed journal, for example, that and citing everything is not enough.
Right.
For me, transcripts matter. Chat transcripts. And people don't even have a phrase for that yet. I've been calling it chat transcripts. But that sort of long discussion that we have with our tool is shareable, and it should be shared.
Yeah.
Even if students are summarizing it. Maybe you don't have the time to read a really long half an hour discussion that it has with a tool, but they can summarize their own discussion, and you can look at it closer if you want to do spot check the quality of the work.
And I would say that, circling back to, how we kind of started with looking at AI from an instructional design, course design perspective, right? Can we move past get the students from point A to point B, and what does that final, product look like at point B, to let's look at what does that journey look like from point A to point B, not just where did you start, where did you finish, how did you start here, how did you finish here, what happened in between, how are we designing courses with that journey in mind, not just the end in mind.
I imagine you've already been using AI to train it on student personas and user journeys.
I mean, yeah, like I've done a little bit of that, but it's hard, right? Because it's not like, it's easy for me to sit here and say that, but now it's, how we have to get a whole group of faculty on board, a whole field of knowledge experts on board with this concept.
I think one of the things you're talking about that's different, though, is a lot of faculty are looking at competency-based, working backwards from outcomes rather than growth-minded or ipsative assessments.
Yeah.
Your whole idea of the journey of the student, I think, has to be pitched to the instructor of record.
Right.
Whoever's going to be teaching the classes you're building. And sometimes the most personal way to do it is to ask them about the teachers that made a big influence on them and what their journey was in those courses.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they can remember the most meaningful learning experiences, even if it's not inside the four walls of a classroom or an online class, they know what the initial experience generally was, but what helps them feel safe for learning, what helps them feel like they can share their personal goals and reflect on their growth as they move forward. And if they haven't had that personal experience before, I still think they're open to it. It's just you have to reacclimate people to new ways of thinking about teaching. Because we all tend to teach the way we've been taught. That's normal.
We do that with anything, right? Like, even outside of the classroom in our own lives, like, we do things the way we were taught. with my wife and I with grocery shopping, right? I always had like a list. I went in the grocery store. I went directly for the things that were on my list to
The
get in.
correct
And
way to
now,
grocery shop.
well, and she would debate that. She was like, "Well, we'll just go down all the aisles and see what we need." I'm like, "But how do you know what you need if you don't have a list?"
There's
Right?
no
Like that was her learned experience versus my learned experience, right? And we have to evaluate that and look at that as, what is the right way and can we compromise and be, you know, utilized both ways.
Well, this is there's many pathways for learning as well.
Right.
So maybe ideally, we're building both pathways in so you can both
Right.
enjoy your grocery
Right.
store experience.
Exactly.
So going back to the instructional design question of course development, we've talked a lot about sort of the vanilla tools that exist.
Yeah.
A couple of things that I just want to pass along there, points of thought. Many tools have AI infused in them that are student side and teacher side. Whether we're using it at our institution, tools like Pathback and Perusal and H5P. I'm thinking most recently about H5P, that has a smart import tool right now that allows us to input a PDF or a video, and it'll create a series of practice interactives with high quality questions. I don't even believe in multiple choice questions, but it has pretty good distractor questions and makes you think. I'm like, okay, I'm impressed. Huge time saver. And I think some of these tools that already exist are worth exploring as part of our course design experience. If we want a low stakes formative practice quiz or interactive within a space, we can build that much more quickly and then show it to an instructor and say, hey, what do you think about this? If we can work through all the kinks and make sure that all the questions are accurate and there's no inconsistencies,
right,
which we can do much more easily now. How do you feel about this?
I mean, I'm all for it. Like use what's at your disposal. And like
I don't think the instructional designer is going to be replaced. I really don't. I think we're just going to find better and better tools to save ourselves time.
Yeah.
And we're going to, the broader questions are, should we be requiring students to use AI in the courses that we build? And I don't know if you're discussing that much at the University of Arizona.
I don't know if we're discussing. I don't think we will ever get to the point here at Arizona where we require instructors to do something in their course.
No, I mean requiring students to use AI as part of the learning experience.
But part of that is the instructors have to be on board with having something where they require students to use AI, and I don't know that will happen. Not in the immediate future. I
will just say this much, but this is a golden opportunity to introduce students to AI, but it's a fraught question because when we require students to use AI, it brings up questions of data sovereignty and student choice, and do they have alternates if they don't want to use AI or create an account with AI? But we're going to see, and we are seeing it nationally, college courses that require students to use AI to complete an assignment.
Right.
And this empowers them to explore the existing tools, maybe compare them, see which one is most effective, and become sort of ready to think about beyond the class that they're in or the career pathway. Okay, how am I using AI in my discipline?
Right.
Which is something we can't answer for them, but they can become the new experts in that area. And for me, that's exciting.
Yeah, that's where I think you need to, instructors should be putting in, to their courses. How are you giving students the autonomy to explore things in the real world and how they're going to be able to take this outside of your classroom and use it, whether it's in their career field, whether it's in their personal lives, whether it's just to like navigate through every, the litany of content that is being thrown at them. So from that standpoint, I think like it's valuable to have those conversations like we talked about, because this is not just, a tool for education, right? AI is going to be used in every field in some way and in every aspect of our life. It's already in every aspect of our life, right? But it's, how are we presenting students with that opportunity to, and I'll go back to this, to reflect on that use and what that means for them within the context of an individual course, within the context of their educational careers, and then beyond that. once they leave the university, what does that mean, and how are they prepared to use it in effective and ethical and all those different ways.
And just to pose I love messy questions.
Yeah.
You know that. I think an important instructional design question is to consider what is the worst possible experience of the students.
Right.
And what I visualize, and I will do this when I do talks, I ask folks to dream big about AI, positive or negative, utopian or dystopian.
Yeah.
What's the worst possible thing you can imagine? It's a different answer for administrators than it is for instructors. But for me, the online student gets an F, which feels like the letter grade equivalent of a slap in the face, and doesn't know why, and is perceived to have misused AI, rightly or wrongly. We do know that these detection tools, for example, continue to provide false positives and are more likely to signal with non-native speakers, and they're just really problematic. But teachers are going to use them anyway because they're trying to ascertain, okay, did students use AI for this? I think it's important as we build our courses from the beginning of our design to think, okay, is this course going to be are students going to utilize AI intuitively? If half of students are using AI in the first place, I don't believe in the term AI proof, Adam. Just put that out. A lot of people are promoting how do you make your class AI proof. But I do feel like, okay, there's ways in which we can go in and say, well, where is AI most likely to be misused in this assignment? And where's an opening for it to be positively used?
Yeah.
And so for me, an AI resilient class would be a course in which you're intentionally imagining the worst possible use case of the student and then steering the student towards positive uses, towards ways that they can transparently show their work. And even if they're not using AI in the class, like if we pivot towards, and these are two things that I strongly believe in, social annotation. If we do our readings within a shared space, students are less likely to misuse AI to skip readings or skim them, because they're accountable to their peers in their discussion. They have to pose questions within a shared reading, and there's a different experience. Same thing with video-based experiences. When students can be expected to present their work with video or to teach their peers about coding, for example, they're less likely to try to use AI to generate the final code without being able to understand how it all works. To me, that's the course design question: is imagine AI being misused and positively used for everything you're doing. And that's part of the new course design process. I know that's messy, but that's what I throw at you as like, let's imagine the worst so that we can imagine the best.
Right. And that's where you brought up the idea, like, where do instructional designers fit in? You have these tools that can do stuff for instructors. These are the conversations that instructional designers can help faculty walk through, right? And you can have that back and forth with a real person and have it like figure that out, right? Because you could ask AI, I'm sure, like, what's the worst possible scenario for AI use on this assignment, right? But it's not going to be the same as if you're having an actual conversation with an instructional designer.
It's entirely different. And I think right now we're encouraging our faculty to go through and do audits of their courses. And our instructional designers are doing the same kind of work to audit for these questions of when can AI be misused or positively used. But at the point of design, if we're beginning with that in mind, I think it allows us to move away from high stakes product assignments where we're judging the product rather than the process. Process includes the metacognitive piece, Adam, that you were just talking about. It includes that reflection throughout where you can see the growth, and it's assessing it at a different level that's going to be harder to hack. It's like harder to use AI to hack all those micro pieces. Might as well just do it for real. And I think it's more fun, it's more social, it's more meaningful if we set it up with a process approach than a product approach. And I think we can do that in instructional design. Many people are doing it that way, moving away from final exams or final single products that have no versions of draft history. Even AI, and this is a weird thing that we're not going to get to, I'm sure, today, but maybe for another time, can be used to help us think about, okay, what is the quality of revision between 4 different drafts? We can upload all 4. Of course, we need to get consent from students before we upload any data into a tool. We need to turn off our please share your data with the model, but you can do that in ChatGPT in the settings, and you can get permission from students and then proceed arguably with analyzing and using AI to analyze 4 versions of a draft and be able to look at the whole process. I think and this is the K-12 teacher in me. I used to teach high school English, 9th and 10th.
Mm-hmm.
I'd come home with a cart full in New York City of student journals that there was no way I was going to be able to assess over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I would spot check them. I choose specific pages to see for the quality of their inquiry. But I wanted them to write. I wanted them to think. I wanted them to fill every page with their ideas and build fluency around writing and thinking. If I only assigned what I could read, they would never have done all the writing they did.
Right.
And I think similarly, we have a similar question in higher education. Do we want to limit what we assign in discussions or what we assign with writing just to stuff that we can humanly read, especially in a larger classroom with larger student to teacher ratios? Maybe AI can actually help us digest more work that students are expected to do that is writing and reading connected, integrated writing and reading. That's my hope. That's like we can use AI to allow us to do deeper inquiry, not to do surface, shallow inquiry, but to go deeper.
Well, I'm going to leave us on that note to go deeper and, have us with a little cliffhanger there. Maybe we come back for part 2 of this discussion.
Sounds good.
Because I think, this is, like you said, it's an ever-changing landscape. It's an ever-evolving topic of conversation. And it's changing so fast that, we want to continue to have these conversations surrounding AI and what that means for us in higher education and in the instructional design world and in the faculty world and all those different circles that it's going to touch. And so I want to thank you again, Reed, for coming on as a guest and for having this enlightening conversation. There's so many more facets of it that we can touch and at some point, I'm sure we'll come back to it. But thanks again. I appreciate it. To our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this episode. And
get out there and play with some AI.
Yeah. Talk to your instructional designers about how you can use it for your course design, how you can encourage students to use it in their assignments and what that means for you as an instructor and an instructional designer. So thanks for listening.
And can I just pose one last thing to tag into this, Adam, which is if you have concerns about AI relating to ethical use, explore those. There's a lot of real critiques about AI and let your students explore them. Let them engage with the question.
Yes.
It's going to keep moving and changing quickly. And if you want to keep in touch with me as that proceeds, I'm on social media, my first name, last name, UX on any channel, but I'd love to chat and think about the ethical quandaries. There's a lot of them emerging and they will keep pushing at us and pushing at our students, but it's moving forward regardless. So for me, I want to empower our students to be able to guide AI forward and bring those questions to our students so that they can be the experts moving forward.
Yeah. And I love what you said right there is empower our students. And that's, I think, ultimately what we want to do as educators is empower students moving forward using this and give them, the tools to explore and move things forward in a positive direction. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll leave you all with that empowerment. And please tune in next time for another episode of the Futures in Digital Learning podcast. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, folks.